Good morning. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts with you quickly. I want to weigh in and indicate that in looking at the bills, I believe that bills that have merit are H322, H497, H41, H340, Senate 311, Senate 257, and Senate 294. Now, if that was all I had to say, I would think that you would wonder why it came up. So I want to tell you some very, very important things. This issue is the most important issue, I believe, that the legislature is going to take up this year, which is this, in essence, what I call the unintended consequences of educational reform. I served as head of the school committee and as mayor of New Bedford from 2006 to the end of 11, beginning of 2012. Before then, I was heavily involved in the school department as a result of my kids, and also have taught at the university, UMass Dartmouth, for 14 years. So let me just share with you a couple of observations. First, this is a public policy decision that has to be made. This is not an issue that needs to be referred back to DESE. And when you hear stories about how it's actually being implemented in the field, and that means the MCAS graduation requirement, standardized tests, I think after 13 years that is a requirement for graduating, you need to really start to look through the weeds and see how this is affecting the state. I believe it fuels the dropout rate, not only for the kids who believe they won't pass the MCAS test, and they may actually begin getting that impression in 4th grade. But I know that it fuels the dropout rate for kids who feel that school now is just teaching to the test. All of us had testing, all of us had assessments. That's a straw dog issue. We also have the Iowa test, whatever it might have been. The problem here now, by tying it into the graduation requirement and also indexing it into whether a teacher is doing a good job or a bad job as to whether a kid can pass a bubble test, you end up in a situation where we have gutted teaching the entire child, teaching kids good citizenship, teaching kids history, teaching kids health, teaching kids phys ed, going ahead, art, music. All of these were gutted. They were gutted one by one in New Bedford because we were striving to meet guidelines and goals, which, quite frankly, standardized tests, I've never met a standardized kid. And what we're doing is missing the whole point of why we bring the kid into school and have a public education. The other great thing about this is that 2 or 3 bubbles that you don't fill out correctly may mean the difference between you becoming what is known as a non-graduating completer, which for the first 6 years they didn't know what to call these young people. Now they call them non-graduating completers. A non-graduating completer in society is the same as a dropout. So if you just look at last year's cohort, and it's very difficult from DESE to get accurate cohorts on non-graduating completers and on dropouts, but I want to talk to you for 1 minute about something that I heard the commissioners say, and which is something, by the way, that I would take very seriously when he says, well, we could forfeit millions of dollars, maybe hundreds of $1 million in federal aid. Our unfunded liability as a result of having non-graduating completers and dropouts as a result of the MCAS system totals last year, if you look at the non-graduating completers, $264 million worth of support that we will have to contribute to these young people and their families for their lifetimes. $360,000 for their lifetime, times 763. Now, I don't know that I passed the mass MCAS, but I believe it's about $264 million. The cost of the unfunded liability, which all of us in this room understand unfunded liabilities, since the MCAS is somewhere around $10 billion. So if we're going to forfeit a few dollars in federal funds, by the way, incredulously, we're the #1 state in the country. We're in the top 10 in the world. 2/3 of our schools are underperforming. That makes no sense to me. And now we're going to forfeit federal money for being the leader in education because we're either not going to dance the part or have a system where very few states actually require the standardized test to be a graduating requirement. Now let me just tell you how this works, and then I thank you very much. I'll give you written testimony to look at with all the stats and figures, but here's how this works. I go to New Bedford High. I work with, which by the way, my 2 boys did a great job, graduated from college, both are professionals, fantastic. They didn't have the MCAS. We trusted the teachers back then to determine whether or not they earned their high school diploma. But what it comes down to is this. I go to New Bedford High now, and Jane Doe and Billy Doe go to New Bedford High. They're not related, but I'm at a loss for good names right now. I take the MCAS. I pass the MCAS. Jane Doe takes the MCAS and does not pass. She may be higher than me in rank in my class. She's passed all her courses as I have. She absolutely, maybe perhaps she's in English as a second language, or perhaps she's involved in a special ed category. She did everything I did, but I filled out a couple more bubbles. I get a degree, she doesn't. There's no remediation in the state system now. The junior colleges, or I'm sorry, the community colleges don't do remediation. If she wants to try and get MCAS remediation, she's going to have to pay for it. We're going to pay for Jane Doe for the rest of our lives. Good for us. We kept her out of the system. The answer is that is not good for us. That is a disaster. We're going to lose our democracy. And the reason we're going to lose it is because right now, if you go to a private school, you don't take the MCAS. What Judy Doe did in New Bedford High gets you the diploma at Bishop Stang. What Judy Doe did at New Bedford High gets you the diploma at Tabor. They don't know how to spell MCAS. Now, the key is, what happens with those diplomas? Well, those diplomas are given the same weight at Bishop Stang, New Bedford High, an MCAS diploma, or Tabor. Given the same weight across the board. The colleges don't get the MCAS scores. The colleges don't, if you have a perfect MCAS score, you get a scholarship to a state school. But other than that, the fact is the MCAS scores, which by the way, they now don't predict success in college, and 2/3 of our kids are getting remediation who pass the MCAS in colleges, those diplomas are of equal weight. You talk about the McDuffie case, how are we providing the best opportunity for our kids when the private school kids don't have their teachers vetted, when the public school kids do, and the parochial kids don't, and they all get the same diploma? The fact is the kids who aren't passing the bubble test are being left behind, and we're going to have to support them. It does not make any sense whatsoever. Now, who are those kids? And you'll hear this all day today. The majority of them are part of that achievement gap. So they're below the poverty line. We are setting up a caste system. This will flip us. We cannot tell people we will not give you your diploma, even though you would have earned it if you had the ability to go to Stang or Tabor. You don't get a diploma, but we will send you a check each month because you're not going to get into society. And if you do, we're going to subsidize you. There aren't enough people working day in and day out to subsidize the people we're keeping out. This is a failed prescription. The status quo on this is absolutely dead. If you go in a classroom, I've watched in 4th grade, the teacher's up on a wall saying, if the answer says may, if the question says may, the answer says may. If you have any doubt about it, key in on that one word. If you don't understand it, go on to the next one, try and eliminate one or two and then guess. Those are the citizens we want? If we've seen a prescription of what happens when we have disaffected students out in the streets, all we have to do is look at the last year and see what happens if we don't have people in our society. I love this issue because I believe in assessment, believe in accountability. I don't believe, though, in setting up a prescription for failure. And I think the legislature is the place to do this now. The numbers are overwhelming. If we get the numbers from DESE, you will find between dropout and non-graduating completers, the unfunded liability that we're not carrying on the books is $10 billion. Because we haven't told kids, why don't we value you as an individual? Let's take your creativity. Not everybody's going to be a brain surgeon, but the brain surgeon's got to eat. He has to have, or she has to have a car fixed, whatever. So
well beyond the 3 minutes.
And thank you, Chairperson. I appreciate it very, very much. I'm a little bit invested in this issue. I've seen an awful lot of kids, much smarter than any of us in this room, who have been locked out of society because of this test. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Mayor Lang? Seeing none.
Thank you.
We will now move to Gardner Auditorium for the remainder of the hearing. I would ask that you all...
I think is not going to be accurately